Today is my wedding anniversary with my husband, Arthur Jones. For some reason, he would always be away during this exact date. We had been married for more than 40 years, and yet, he refused to spend any romantic, special occasions with me. After finishing breakfast all alone, I went to mop the floor. I was just passing by the study when I caught the mess piled up at the bookshelf from the corner of my eye. With a dragged-out sigh, I set aside the mop and went inside to sort out the mess. When I got to the topmost row, a heavy book with a thick and intricate cover dropped and smacked against my head. The abrupt pain made me hiss. It took a while before I finally realized that what I was looking at was not any ordinary book. Instead, it was a wedding album. All of the pictures inside featured the same pair of couple. They were dressed in different sets of wedding gowns and suits in each picture. The only thing that was consistent was the bright, heartwarming smile they wore on their faces. The man inside the pictures was someone I was beyond familiar with. It was Arthur. However, the woman in the pictures was not me. I pressed a hand against the throbbing pain on my temple and could feel my head spinning. For a moment, I could not register if it was my head or my heart that ached more. The most recent picture in the album was taken precisely 1 year ago from the present date. Even though the couple's hair had turned white, they seemed as enamored with each other as young lovers were. There was also a handwritten message in Arthur's writing behind the picture. He had written it with meticulous penmanship. It was clear how much value he attributed to it. Eternal love. Upon closer inspection, each picture was labeled with a date. From 40 to 60 years old. Their hair had faded gradually from black to white, and yet, they have never missed a single year. As it turned out, this was the reason my husband had been inventing all sorts of excuses to skip celebrating our wedding anniversary every year. It was also he could take an annual wedding picture with the love of his life. This was completely absurd. I shut the album with trembling hands while my thoughts traced back to Arthur's demeanor before he left home yesterday. He mentioned that our son was going on a business trip abroad and needed his help for translation because the usual translator could not make it. I did not think much of it at the time. It was especially convincing since he used to be a foreign language professor before he retired. I did suggest that we could go together so I could get the chance to explore another country. The sheer suggestion made his expression darken. Our son is there for official business. Why are you trying to meddle with his work? Besides, you don't even speak the language there. You're only going to cause more trouble. I was so flustered that I was at a loss for words. However, I had to admit he had a point. Now that I thought about it, the one person my son respected the most was none other than his father. He would be more than glad to pick Arthur to accompany him on the business trip. With that, I reached for my phone and called my son to verify the story. My dear, your father told me he's going on a business trip with you. I'm worried about his health. How are you two holding up over there? There was a prolonged silence on the phone. Then he told me in an unusually candid voice he's great. He might be 60 years old, but he's very healthy for his age. He was covering for Arthur. Upon realizing this, I could feel my heart turn to a block of ice. I hung up the phone after a couple half-hearted remarks, then beads of tears began to fall. I was not expecting my son of all people to be in cahoots with my husband to lie to me. Arthur took the wedding pictures at the same photo studio every year. I took a taxi to the same studio. We have been married for decades. Perhaps the only way for me to truly end things was to witness the brutal betrayal in person. When I stepped out of the car, I observed it was getting cloudy. There was going to be a storm soon. I nervously paced to the entrance. It did not take long before I spotted Arthur through the window. He was seated on a couch and dressed in a handsome suit. Suddenly, there was a glow in his eyes. A tender smile came over his usually solemn expression. I followed his line of sight and spotted an older lady dressed in a gown who had just stepped out of the fitting room. Her silver hair was bound up expertly in a bun and had an intricate flower pin poking through it. She was the woman in the pictures. They stood hand in hand and stared at each other with deep affection in their eyes. I felt the world crumbling around me. There was a storm. The clouds above were ominously black and beating thunder. I did not bring an umbrella with me and had to duck under the eaves to get away from the rain. Soon, one of the employees came to collect the signboards left outside. Upon noticing me, she tried to bring me inside for shelter. Hey lady, it's raining out here. Come on in and take shelter from the rain so you don't catch a cold. She put her saleswoman instincts to work while bringing me inside. Check out our collection of wedding dresses too while you're here. You can bring your husband to take wedding photos here. A lot of our clients are older couples because they never got a chance to get a proper wedding shoot back when they were younger and wanted to make up for it. They do say that love never expires. I dragged my lethargic feet behind her and felt my heart drop as I listened to her. I immediately recalled the circumstances that led me to Arthur in the past. It was a matchmaker who set us up. Back then, he was still busy with his career while I only worked as a cashier, and both of us had little money to spare. In the end, we settled with a simple ceremony for our marriage and called it a day. There was no wedding shoot. He said that we would do it after he had the money for it. I waited and waited. Before I realized it, several decades had gone by only for me to witness him taking countless bridal pictures with another woman. The only thing I could do was note with irony that there was no point counting on such frivolous matters anymore. When the clerk brought me into the store, Arthur was bent over and busy adjusting the gown for his partner. She whispered faintly to him with a noticeable blush. Stop that, it's embarrassing. I'm an old lady already. Arthur slowly rose. Just as he was about to speak, he noticed me standing by the door. His expression stiffened in an instant, and then he blurted out, "Why are you here?" The moment we crossed eyes, I could notice the inflection of shock, guilt, and even a bit of irritation inside his eyes. Was he upset because I had rudely interrupted his private date? If I was still a young woman, I would have lost it and started telling him off. I would have asked why he would hurt my feelings. But now, the only thing that went through my mind was how numb it felt to witness such a display. Even I was surprised by how calm my voice sounded in my ears, and I was only concerned about maintaining some sense of civility between us. I accidentally found your photo album, and I figured you might be here, so I came to check. He frowned and seemed a little annoyed. His first thought was to worry about said album. Why did you touch my belongings? Did you put it back? The other people around us were drawn in by the commotion. Then, it seemed like he was worried about embarrassing himself in public and proceeded to withdraw the look in his eyes while drawing closer to me. Don't cause a scene. Sylvia and I were just lovers from the past. I have a family and an established career now. All I want is to just take some pictures with her and make up for what we never got to have in the past. Sylvia Clark. I suddenly recalled that Sylvia was Arthur's first love. They went to the same university and were both studying foreign languages. They were together for a few years and came close to getting married. However, they were later forced to split because Sylvia's family opposed the marriage. The decision must have been prompted by how poor Arthur was at the time. He barely had a penny to his name. While Arthur and I were speaking, Sylvia was rooted awkwardly to the same spot and cried out helplessly, "Arthur." Arthur stopped mid-sentence. He stole a look at the rain outside, then he turned to me and said, "I have to send her home. She gets sick very easily. Wait for me. I'll come back for you, then we can talk when we get home." With that, I was left to watch helplessly as he left hand in hand with Sylvia, who was wearing a smug look the entire time. Arthur hailed a taxi and gently escorted Sylvia into the taxi before burrowing inside as well. I have never experienced such a level of thoughtfulness and attentiveness from him. I was not going to wait around at the studio like a fool for Arthur to come back for me. I could get a taxi myself. There was no reason to wait for him. I called a taxi and had them drive to the front of the studio. I even troubled the driver to step out and escort me into the car with an umbrella so I would not get caught in the rain. At my age, I am especially vulnerable to sickness. Therefore, I have to take care of myself. Arthur returned 2 hours after I got home.